Welcome to Only One You Need Radio. We're not the only one you need. You are. We just show you how to get out of your own way. With your host, speaker, author, business coach, and consultant, David Dubé.
Welcome to Only One You Need Radio. It's your host, David Dubé. Super excited to have you here today. In this episode, we're going to talk about death, loss, and grieving, as they are all three synonymous with each other. They're all synonymous with death and loss, at least grieving is. So in this episode, I want to give you guys context to why you should listen to me. And not to say that I am, infallible when it comes to any of this at all, but I'm going to give you some background as to myself and why you should listen to me when it comes to this. Secondly, I want to talk about our perception of death and loss. So that, to me, that's a really big thing that needs to be talked about. And at the very end, I want to give you tools that you can use and utilize in your life when it comes to dealing with death and loss. Now, once again, if you feel that this is something that's useful and helpful to you, and it might be helpful and useful to someone else, I strongly urge you to share this out with friends, family, share it out on the social medias. Let people know that there are resources out for you when it comes to this. So to me, this is very, very, very important stuff. And so let's talk about why I feel you should listen to me when it comes to this, so we can get to the meat and potatoes of giving you context here. Or at least content. Context is what we're doing right now. So January 18th, 2017 is a Wednesday. That's the day my mother passed away. My mother had cancer, and it was her third time being diagnosed. And because it was her third time, when in September she called me because she couldn't hold food down, I essentially knew the beginning and the end was starting. And so because of that, the mourning and the grieving process was, I feel, a little bit easier. Like, you could see that the end of the road was there. And so there was preparation beforehand. I mean, I do recall in 2010 when my mother made the phone call to me when she first got diagnosed. And in that was a huge transition point for me, right? So 2010, first diagnosed, 2016, third diagnosis, knew the end was there. Now, fast forward to February 5th of 2018, another close friend passed away, and he was diagnosed with cancer in, I believe it was 2015, April 1st, 2015. So with him also, there was this conception of an end of a road, which made it easier to be comfortable with. Certainly, none of it is easy by any stretch of the imagination. There's all these things that happen. Like, my mom passed away, and guess what? She had a house, right? Had her will, had all the things in her house, had two cats. One of the cats passed away a month and 1 week to the day of my mom's passing. Like, there's a lot of things that go into dealing with it as well, and a lot of things you don't want to have to deal with, but you have to deal with them. So now let's fast forward here to the 5th of March. Now, the 5th of March, I pretty much spent my whole weekend off of social media, and so I sit down at my computer Monday morning, turn it on, and I notice I have several friend requests when I finally get to Facebook. And one of them in particular was of interest because it's one of my best friend's girlfriends. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. Things must be progressing pretty well. She's requested my friendship. So I accept the friendship, and I see on her profile all these pictures of her with, my best friend. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is pretty cool. Now, after that occurred, I noticed that the message icon lights up. So I received a message. Lo and behold, it's also from her. So I'm thinking, oh, good news. I click it, I look at it, and I'm like, maybe not good news. Now, I don't get to that point until the end. It says, I know I haven't met you, but and she says his name, but I'm going to not include it here. I'm your friend's girlfriend. I wanted to reach out to you and let you know that your friend passed away. He took his life late Thursday, early Friday morning. I know he valued your friendship, and I wanted you to know. Once all the family and close friends have been notified, we'll post funeral arrangements for all those who want to attend. Let me tell you, that's like a punch to the face, the gut. It's like running 60 miles an hour or even 100 miles an hour into a brick wall. Not just one, let's say a concrete wall. That's how that feels. And some of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you have had similar experiences. It's jaw-dropping. You're beside yourself. You don't even know how to process this information. And it's really crazy because this is coming from one of my best friends who would never do this. Like, I would never have put this, never, ever, ever have put this as something that would ever happen and that he would do to himself. Never. Truly, truly baffling. And once again, because of that, it's fairly devastating, right? Like, all that you knew is gone. Now, I met him in 2014. So we've only known each other for 4 years. The crazy thing is, and maybe it was late 2013. Either way, it's roughly 4 years. We went from, he'd just moved into the neighborhood, met him while I was out with another best friend, and the commonalities were crazy, became good friends quickly, great friends, and then best friends in a real short period of time. Literally, like, I felt like I've known him my whole life because of how great of a relationship we had. That's an amazing relationship. That's something like, wow. And here he is gone. Just boom, like that. So what do you do? So there's context right there. There's context to why we're talking about death, loss, and grief. So there's the context to it. All right, so let's talk about perception when it comes to death, when it comes to dying. Now, if you're a Western society and you turn on the TV any day of the week, any night, any whatever, you will find death prominent all over the TV, everywhere. It's all over the place. It is something that is rampant in our lives. It's all over TV. And it's all over the news too. It's like, it's a thing to talk about. And yet, let me ask you this question. When you leave your house, how many people do you meet that seem to be like cold-blooded killers? Like 99.9999999% of the people that you meet are really, really nice people. Are really nice. And it's like a very tiny, tiny percentage that are like evil doers anyway. And it's crazy that when we turn on the TV, that's really what's glorified. Death is glorified. When you put in a video game, death is glorified. It's something that's like looked upon, and you're a success if you do it correctly. But in real life, that's not how it works. It's definitely not how it works. And it blows my mind. And then if you're Catholic, you're religious, and it doesn't have to be Catholicism. It can be, any type of religion, but Catholicism in particular, people mourn death more than, on TV, it's also the case. In movies, it's also the case. Like mourning death is like, oh, it's the thing. We're going to kill someone and then we are going to mourn them. And the grief that they show and portray on TV and in Western society is drastic. It's crazy. But yet, if you look at like ancient cultures, if you look at some native cultures, you'll see that death is celebrated. It's celebrated. The focal point isn't the death and the loss of something. The focal point is the fact that that you were a part of them and they were a part of you. Like there's a different focal point that makes it different. In Indonesia, they live with the dead. Some families, they mummify their parents and then they keep them in their homes with them. And also they celebrate. There's cultures all over the world that celebrate. And it's crazy to think that our focus, you read the Bible. So if you are religious, even if you're not, you probably already know this, right? Your spirit goes where? Like your spirit rises and it's in heaven now. But yet we mourn it so much. We talk about the loss so much. So the focus is on the loss and not where the transition went to. It's crazy. It blows my mind. It's baffling to me that is something that is so focused on, especially in Western society. Like, aren't we better than that? Like, no, I guess not. We're going to focus on this. And so, really, to me, like I said, it's a very confusing thing. Now, if you look at science, so let's look at this from the scientific aspect. Whether you're atheist, agnostic, doesn't matter. What happens when you boil water? This is just science fact right here. What happens when you boil water? It transforms into steam, doesn't it? See, water, it didn't, it didn't die, did it? No, it transformed. We don't die, we transform. There's a transformation that takes place when we cease to exist here in the physical form. This is a property of nature, energy. This is how the world works. But yet, you know what? They're dead. Yeah, their physicalness is not here, but they have transformed. See, that's the point. They have transformed. Science even dictates the transformation of something. And it's crazy that we have to focus on it in the opposite way. Why do we focus on it in any other way than that? What good does it do you to stop focusing on the greatness of who they were? And I guess at this point, someone might say, well, they committed suicide. So if you're Catholic and you're talking about suicide being a thing and being something that Catholicism is against, it wasn't a rule until sometime, I don't know, I want to say recent times, but it was added later. It wasn't something that was really actually it wasn't actually a rule. It was added later. And I don't know the specifics of this. All I know is that you can do research and find out that suicide wasn't a thing until later on. Which means man created that law. That law is not a biblical law. Either way, they're not here. And you want to find a way to deal with that loss, that hole that you feel inside of you, right? They're not here, so there's now a hole inside of you where that used to be. Now, that hole is a loss of love for many people. But that's an interesting thing to say because love is only lost if it's conditional love. You see, there's two types of love. There's love and conditional love. Conditional love is you give it a condition of something. That condition in this case happens to be, if you're not here, you can't love me. So there's a condition that if they're not there, which means there's no transformation. So death is death and there's no transformation, which science proves that there is transformation. But yet you're saying that there's none. And you're putting a condition on love, but there's no condition on love. So when you remove your condition, they haven't left, their love hasn't ended, and neither has yours. The other thing too is your memory of them hasn't ended either, but yet we focus once again on their ending and not all the great things that came along with them. Once we focus on the ending, we add definition to an ending. But when we focus on everything that they brought us, then there's no ending. It doesn't end because it continues to fill our lives. It continues to permeate not only in our minds, but in our hearts. So what you want to do if you don't want to feel this hole is focus on all the things that they brought you. All the things that they brought into your life. Focus on that. Focus on the joy. Because inevitably, like if I close my eyes, I still can hear my mother's voice. I can hear it exactly as if it were coming out of her mouth. I can do that with my friend who passed on the 5th of February. I can do that with my friend who passed on the 1st of March. I can still hear their voice. I can still see their faces in my mind. They're not gone. Physically, yes, they'll never be here. Not in the same way as they have ever been. But I can still experience who they are. And that never has to end. I can still focus on all the great times that we had, all the things that I've learned from them and that I loved about them. And when I focus on that, it brings me joy and it fills me with love. It doesn't take it away. Their love has yet to end for me. But this is a choice, and you have to want to make that choice. You have to want to make that choice. There's another thing that you should be cognizant about. And that is time. Time. I say this often, life is a lesson and time is the teacher. Time is the teacher because we don't know when it's going to end. Time is this weird thing. We don't ever get it back. So you do know that time is constrained because it's finite. So you have only so much time in your life. And now I've lost someone who's a best friend. And I lost them at an early age. Well before years, eons before this person should have gone away. And so my focus is how can I jam more into this life than I've ever imagined possible. I can use it as a motivation for myself. Never to see this happen to someone close to me ever again. No one deserves it. No one. He especially. No one deserves it. No one deserves to go early. Ever, period. Like he knows, he knew what I did. There's no question. He knew what I did for work. There's a reason why he didn't call me. But I can use all of that as motivation in my life to get greater results for me and the people I love most. Use it as motivation for yourself to live life more fully and to not let other people go through the same circumstances, same issues, deal with the same things as maybe you had dealt with because you weren't thinking of things in this light. Life is far too short. And people are far too amazing. I don't know you personally. Most of you listening to this, I don't know you personally. But I want to tell you this. I love you and I care about you. And if I can have an effect on you, if I can help you know that, understand that, feel that love, and do something great with it, then I've done my job. Don't let someone go without saying you love them. And it's crazy. This is something that needs to be revisited again and again. It needs to be revisited because we forget. We forget. We let our emotions take place in our lives, and we had a miserable experience at work or at home or whatever, or we just had a bad night. And so the next moment we're talking to someone we really love, we're kind of in a daze and in a lull. And so we forget that we truly do love them and that we really do love ourselves and that we want to show up and be there for those people we love the most. It's time to start showing up better and better with those that you love, those that you want in your life, and those that you respect, and show them your respect by putting down your cell phones, putting down your distractions, and giving 100% of your attention and your energy to that person so they know and understand that's how you feel about them. And when you do that, and when we do that with more people, and we can share more intimate things with people, less of this stuff can happen. Less of this stuff will happen. This doesn't have to be an issue. Once again, talking about this is post-incident. And it's not the way to have this conversation. Post-incident is not the way. This is not when we want to have this conversation. This should have happened last month. So the conversation could have been had with my best friend. And this didn't have to happen. But once again, life is a lesson and time is the teacher. I can't take any of it back. I can't change it. Sure, I could dwell on it. Where's that going to get me? What is that going to do for me? We can dwell on our sorrows. We can dwell on the things that we wish we did. And if you want a technique for this, I'll give you one. And it works. It's this. If you regret something, play it again in your head without it being something regretful. Have that conversation in your mind's eye with that person. Say you're sorry. Have the emotional feelings that you have when you actually mean it during that. And your perception will change and your life will change. And the reason is because your energy changes when that happens. You change your energy set because of that. And you heal it inside of you by doing that. You don't carry that regret with you by healing it internally. That's where it has to heal. If it can happen externally too, so like you actually, that person is still in your life, you can still do that as well. But absolutely do it in your mind's eye. I remember several years back, I had an incident similar to what I'm talking about, where I felt like I said something like wrong and offended someone, and I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. And since I knew this person wouldn't probably take a phone call from me or meet with me, I did what I did inside my head. I had that conversation in my head and I felt perfectly good about it. But I also sent an email apologizing for it. Never got a response from it. Never ever did. But I was certain that I had that confirmation internally of the forgiveness. And that's what I needed. And that's also why I sent the email, because I knew I could still contact the person. If they read it, they read it. If they didn't, they didn't. But either way, I did what I could to resolve that, and I resolved it internally. Otherwise, it played as a loop in my head and it ate away at me. And the question is, do you want that to eat away at you day in and day out for the rest of your life? Or would you rather have it be healed, not only internally for you, but hopefully externally? If that's the case, you need to do that. I hope, it is my intention that this was able to help you. And if not you, you share this with someone whom this is able to help. This means so much to me. This should never happen, should never have happened, but I can't change that. But if because of this, I can help you or I can help anyone not deal with this, not go through this, that is my intention. Share this out. Tell people that they need to listen to this if you feel that this is useful and a helpful tool for anyone. On iTunes, feel free to rate me, rate this episode, rate this channel. YouTube, same thing. Find me on Instagram, find me on Facebook. David Dubé here. You know, it's time that you be the person you're meant to be, believe in all that you're capable of, and become more than you thought imaginable. I look forward to talking again soon. Make it a great day.